we are in a moment when science offers a lot of possibilities to challenge, medical tradition or medical discoveries, and it is very interesting to do that.
So welcome to my studio, the beautiful Barcelos Hotel in Seville, and I'm with Pierre-Louis Malphettes, and I walked into one of the auditoriums and he was doing an absolutely incredible presentation.
Oh, no, thank
It
you.
was, it really was.
Thank you, Bianca.
And I tracked him down and I said, right, we need to talk about this because it's the kind of thing we need to be hearing, and I think especially the practitioners in South Africa, I think would appreciate it. They're very scientific in their thinking,
Yes.
And it's something that we need to talk about. So today we're going to be speaking about micro-immunotherapy.
Absolutely, micro-immunotherapy. What is it?
So tell us about it.
Well, it's a very interesting story. As you have this homeopathic doctor in Belgium in the 60s called Maurice Génard. He's an explorer. He wants to find answers. But he's a real homeopath. He is convinced after 40 years of study and practice of homeopathy that Samuel Hahnemann has really brought something important to the world. But meanwhile, he's discovering immunology. Immunology is at that time a new science. For instance, you have important discoveries in the 60s, but very few. The main discoveries are between the 60s and the 80s. So it's a very new science. And he thinks to himself, look, I have problems with some patients with complicated disease. So maybe I could use some components of these discoveries like RNA, DNA, and proteins. But they know that if they use too much of that, it creates troubles. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
but what can you do? What is your feeling?
So, I mean, if, look at smaller doses.
Yes.
So that would be the first thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But not dilution.
Yes.
Diluted is not
Not
convenient.
it.
What
Yes.
can we do then? We
Gosh.
can use homeopathic dilution,
Aha.
of course. And this is the game changer. So he's using this homeopathic diluted components and step by step doing some observations. And it will last almost 20 years.
In sort of observing this.
Absolutely, and testing, of course, with his
Yes.
patients.
Yeah.
He's working in Africa, he's working a bit everywhere with very interesting adventures.
Aha.
But he's a pioneer. And in the 80s, we have new discoveries with cytokines, interleukins. So the one I've been speaking about, interleukin 6, has been discovered in 1986.
So that's
It's
about
very soon.
40 years ago, more or less.
Only 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a very important cytokine which is involved in the inflammatory reaction. It's also an anti-inflammatory reaction. So if we want to speak about cytokines, what is it? The immune system is composed of cells. So we have the innate immune system, what you have when you are born, like baby, this innate immune system. And over time, this immune system will be informed with everything which happens and the
Everything
history
we're exposed to.
we are exposed to. There is a
illnesses
memory
we
effect.
have.
Exactly. So it's beautiful, very natural, the defense system. And this system is learning, but is also speaking. And the words of the immune system are this signaling molecule, where you find cytokines, interleukins, growth factors, so many others. That is quite technical. Guys, you need to look at your books and learn about immunology. It's fascinating.
Absolutely.
And it's not that complicated if you go step by step.
Yes.
You need step by step by step. And then you start to understand what the immune reaction is. Allergies, viruses, viral reactivation, you learn a lot. So we are discovering cytokines and we know more about the immune reaction. And the story of microimmunotherapy, almost one of them of the actors I'm working with, his name is Labolife, is that they have used formulas asked by doctors,
So designed by doctors.
designed by doctors or
Okay.
with doctors, and they have made medicine out of that.
Okay.
So the principle is to mimic the immune reaction, or to help the immune reaction do its own job.
Sure. So
But-
not to suppress it, not to
No.
make it do something, to
No.
facilitate that
To
reaction.
facilitate it, murmuring if you want, when it needs to be. So you want to stimulate a bit the immune system, or you want to inhibit,
Down-regulate.
down-regulate.
Sure.
And then you understand as a homeopath what it means.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, what is really interesting for me, was where you spoke of certain potencies having either an up-regulating or a down-regulating
True,
effect.
absolutely. So when you speak about research, you can speak about hypotheses of action, okay? Because it is more serious to speak this way. But then when you do some preclinical research, as we have done with this IL-6, okay, we have proposed to some type of cells different dilutions. So in one way they are supposed to react, in another way they are supposed to sleep, if you want. And what is very interesting in this research is that we can see, using biological analysis, from normal cellular or biology, so no, it's normal research, it's modern research, we can see some interesting effects.
So we are actually seeing this in preclinical trials.
True, absolutely, yes. And
This was where my mind was blown, is we are seeing this.
yes, so when we speak about preclinical research, we are into research. It is very important because you are observing things in vivo or in vitro, but it's a laboratory work.
Sure.
But it helps research go forward. And the colleagues who have been doing this research have also studied other molecules, other proteins in diverse circumstances, and they are, convinced that it's interesting to go forward.
Sure.
Okay.
So here's a question. It's reproducible?
Yes, of course.
So if we give this particular potency, we see this cellular reaction every time we do it? It's
Yes,
reproducible.
of course. Yes.
Because that's critical. We can't do it and
Well,
it happened
of
once.
Of course. Well, the protocols which are used are very strict. For instance, when you do it, you will use donors. So you see already if one donor is reacting and not the other, or if all cells from all donors are reacting also. But in this case, it's the situation.
That's fascinating. So this means what? That there's room for us to explore further.
There is a lot of room for work using modern techniques. There is room for publication, and this work has been publicized in different journals, scientific journals like Life or.
And so these are already published journals,
Yes.
which we will send to you and share, because this is obviously public information. Please go through it. Highly technical, but it shows the science of the art that we practice.
Yes, but it shows that we are in a moment when science offers a lot of possibilities to challenge, medical tradition or medical discoveries, and it is very interesting to do that without fear. It will also bring us to a certain conversation level where we understand that science is about, conversation, discovery. It's very interesting. It's an open world,
I am at the information and communication meeting that we had with Dr. Manchanda. He mentioned a quote about basically, and I'll mess it up if I try and get it right, basically saying, how disappointed would Hanuman, one of the greatest investigators, inventors, researchers of his time, be if he could look at us now and not see similar investigators, researchers, people that think out the box. you know, and I think it's time for us to look at this art, the science, with that same investigative, out-the-box thinking. So,
Yes. Well, yes.
Yeah.
Probably it's a different work for researcher and for practitioners.
Sure, sure, sure.
And practitioners need to have some framework because
Yes.
they cannot change every day, and
Absolutely.
there is regulation.
That's not the time now, for sure.
But for a researcher,
Yes.
it's a very interesting moment. They have a lot of means, and they are opening dialogue with colleagues from completely different areas. So,
Fantastic.
well, it's a very humble school also.
Yes, I'm sure.
So here we're speaking today, it's very nice, but they are very cautious with the fact that the results are inspiring and are inviting to move forward.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So thank you so much
Very
for chatting
much.
with me.
Yes, thank you,
And
Bianca.
we'll carry on the conversation
Yes,
off
we will.
camera.
And I say hello to friends in South Africa. Can have
Yes, absolutely.
a lot of
Shout
information, and you are lucky to have Bianca with you.
out. Ah. I'll pay you off.